With each new form that Luffy achieves, he gains new powers. The interesting thing is that each of them brings diverse abilities, making the levels of power our protagonist can reach even more complex. In this video, we will analyze all the powers that Luffy gains in each of his forms. So do you remember them all? Let's go and I'll show you. Luffy Nightmare. Before talking about Luffy's forms, we need to mention this transformation, which is undoubtedly one of the most powerful he possesses. Luffy acquired this form during the Thriller Bark arc. At that time, he was not in a position to defeat Moria and the corpse of Oars. So, the inhabitants of Thriller Bark had the brilliant idea to implant over 100 shadows into Luffy. He gained blue skin and further increased the size of his body, acquiring the accumulated power of all the owners of those shadows. For example, one of the shadows belonged to a skilled swordsman. Thus, Luffy gained all the experience and skills of that person, becoming a swordsman as good as he was. He probably acquired several other abilities such as cooking and navigating, but at most, we only saw him as a swordsman. The big advantage, however, was the massive gain in physical strength. The fight against Oars became easy. Luffy had so much strength that he tossed the creature, which was over 67 meters tall, back and forth as if it were a doll. And it's worth noting that Oars was likely weighing around 100 tons, making this feat even more impressive. The problem is that Luffy cannot activate this transformation naturally, only with the shadows of others. Additionally, when he used this technique, there was a limit of 10 minutes of duration. Gear. Second, to achieve the second form, Luffy begins to pump his blood more rapidly, allowing it to circulate through his body with agility. As a result, his skin takes on a reddish hue, and he starts to emit instant smoke. This entire process causes his heart to beat even faster, generating an exponential increase in all his physical abilities, especially in speed. He experiences a significant increase in speed for dodging attacks, and in agility for delivering strikes. This form allows him to become even stronger and faster than Lucci, who, in addition to being naturally very strong, possessed the power of the leopard fruit, making him extremely fast and resilient. However, Luffy's second form proves so powerful that he managed to land hundreds of blows on Lucci, leaving him in a considerably weakened state. Gear third. To reach this form, Luffy bites his index finger and begins to blow into his bones, which increases the size of his fist as his body can stretch due to its rubber properties. This is an extremely offensive ability. When Luffy faces an enemy with greater resistance than his own, he uses this technique to deliver a much stronger attack, capable of wearing down the opponent or knocking them unconscious. Initially, it had a negative side effect, leaving Luffy in a reduced form for a few minutes. However, after his training with Rayleigh, he mastered this technique and avoided that problem. Gear 4th. Boundman. Luffy achieved this form during his training with Silver's Rayleigh. The Straw Hat compresses his entire arm with Haki of Armament and then blows a large amount of air into his forearm. Unlike Gear 3rd, he places more emphasis on his upper limbs instead of his fists, which results in his characteristic appearance and prevents him from staying still due to the large amount of air in his body. This form has many enhancements compared to the second form, especially due to the Haki coating, which provides a significant advantage. However, the great asset of this transformation is not just the Haki around his body, but also the additional abilities it grants to Luffy. He can further vary the use of rubber in his body, such as compressing his feet to gain momentum and jump high, or compressing his fist into his forearm to deliver even more powerful punches. He can also create additional fists to attack with greater force. In addition to the increase in physical strength, this form proved decisive in the fight against Doflamingo. Luffy faced significant challenges, but upon reaching this form, he became strong and fast enough to overcome Doflamingo's Fruit Awakening. The only issue is that he can only maintain it for 10 minutes. After that time, he reverts to his normal form and is incapacitated from using Haki for another 10 minutes. Gear 4th. Tankman. Luffy used this form only once, and when it appeared, it became clear that it is one of the strongest he possesses. Basically, he had to eat all the cookies produced by Cracker's fruit, which left him with the belly everyone knows. Even in this deplorable state, Luffy still decided to use the fourth form to get out of this situation. And yes, he managed to maintain the fourth form even in this state. His belly was completely covered with haki, creating a body so rigid that Cracker could no longer inflict damage on him in this form. Additionally, he gains the ability to suck in anyone who is touching his belly. With the person inside, he throws them kilometers away with greater force than a punch from Gear 3rd. To give you an idea, he launched Cracker kilometers away, causing him to become unconscious immediately. It is undoubtedly one of the strongest forms, but unfortunately, it has the condition of obesity for Luffy to activate it. Gear 4th, Snakeman. Without a doubt, this is one of Luffy's most impressive transformations. It is one of the 3 variations of the fourth form. In this form, the focus is on the speed of attacks and how he changes the direction of his movements. Unlike Boundman, the haki present in his body only appears on his forearms and fists. Luffy has used this form on 3 occasions, against Katakuri, Kaido, and Kizaru. Of the 3, it was most effective against Katakuri, as it provided Luffy with the necessary conditions to face someone with such refined speed and observation haki. The fact that he has more speed and the ability to change the direction of his punches is ideal for hitting someone fast and agile like Katakuri. However, against someone like Kaido, it is not as effective. After all, we saw Luffy land several blows on Kaido, but none were successful. Additionally, this transformation has a disadvantage compared to Boundman, as the Straw Hat becomes much more vulnerable to the attacks of opponents. Gear 5th. By far, this is Luffy's strongest transformation. By emanating the heartbeat known as the Drums of Liberation, Luffy achieves the awakening of Nika's form. He completely changes his appearance, with white clothing and hair. This form has 2 major powers. The first is the increase in physical strength. Luffy becomes so powerful that he gains enough strength to carry Kaido in his dragon form. He literally grabs Kaido by the tail and head and jumps rope with him. Seriously, it is one of the most impressive feats of strength in the history of One Piece. The second power, and the most impressive, is the Toon Force. With his powers limited only by his own imagination, Luffy acquires this ability. For those who don't know, Toon Force is the typical power to do impossible things, as seen in characters like Woody Woodpecker or Mask, who do absurd things in a comedic way. He can do almost anything. He can transform into a giant version of himself, squash his body to the ground like jelly, or move his legs at incredible speed like Wile E. Coyote. Not to mention the time he created sunglasses purely out of mischief, demonstrating his ability to conjure comedic things out of nowhere. In each battle, he does something new. From creating a huge mouth that devours everything like Pac-Man, to a giant fist the size of an island. Whatever you can imagine, he does. But unfortunately, this transformation has a heavy side effect. After just a few minutes in this form, Luffy returns to his base form, but with an elderly appearance, indicating that he loses even more of his lifespan. So what comes after the 5th form? That's right, the reverse form. And that's why you're going to take a moment to check if you liked and subscribe to the channel before leaving this video. It's super important that you don't forget this, as the like helps YouTube continue sending my videos to you. So don't forget. Okay, it will be a pleasure to have you here with us. Anyway, I really appreciate your attention. A big hug and see you next time.